Oh, and here we are again. And look, I'm back now with something for the folks across the pond, specifically the UK today, and this will be the first video on the violence in Europe as a whole overall. But for the sake of both clarity and time, I will cover the UK separately. Currently, I'm looking into events and statistics for Germany and France. If there's more that you'd like me to look into, feel free to send the links down in the comment section below and I will look into them. But as of now, it's only Germany and France. But without further segueing and tangents, let's get into this. So I started looking more into this after my last live stream. And with some help from people I know that live in the UK, I got my hands on some articles that paint a pretty dark picture of the UK, and to be more specific, London. But let's not overlook the mayor of London, as he is quite vocal about his disdain for Trump, while seemingly not even willing to do anything tangible for his city and the citizens within the city to curb the rising crime rate. But for the sake of not being disingenuous, he did at least respond to it after getting crucified by many members of office, some in his own party, but he still didn't miss a chance to berate people carrying knives. Now, with this said, this is not in the least bit surprising. After all, Sadiq Khan has gone rather hard at Trump, even going so far as willing UK to ban his visits. But that's a topic for another time. This broad statement could be taken to mean that he doesn't want people to defend themselves either. Completely unaware of the fact that the people committing these acts of violence don't care if carrying a knife is illegal, which it is in certain circumstances, but more on that later. But that little bit of hard truth aside, keep in mind that the UK not only has strong gun laws, but also has laws about knives that many of us that live within the borders of the United States, depending on local laws and state laws, we would look at them as kind of like seriously. But anyway, as you can see here, they even going so far as to allow Big Brother, and I quote here, to decide whether or not you have a good reason to carry a knife. Now, like I said before, us barbarian Yankees don't deal with laws like this, and depending on local and state, and even with this disparity, London is still surging in violence, but it goes deeper than that. But in regards to the whole knife thing, it does seem rather odd to me that they don't allow 18-year-olds to buy, anyone under the age of 18 to buy cutlery. Like, so you're gonna tell a 16-year-old that he can't fucking buy a fucking knife? I don't know. It's weird to me, but that's besides the point. There was also a recent drive-by in the heavily regulated country, despite their gun laws. With all this going on, those of us in the U.S. need to keep this in mind in regards to those frothing at the mouth to further restrict firearms because it will supposedly curb violence in the U.S. Yes, I'm talking specifically about those that are following that Area 51 looking motherfucker around. But going back to the UK further on into the article in regards to the shooting of the 17-year-old in Tottenham, I know I'm probably butchering that, you can find this particular quote from David Lammy, or Lemmy, I'm not too sure. Sorry if I pronounced his name wrong. The MP of Tottenham, stating that there's been a big spike in not only knife-related violence, but also gun violence as well. This is, of course, the same country that spends time policing trolls on the internet, versus actually allotting that time that could have been used by actual police officers going after people that are actually committing actual fucking crimes rather than saying mean things online. And I know I'm well aware of the fact that the UK doesn't have a First Amendment like we do here in the US. I am well aware of that. From what I understand, their freedom of speech is simply implied. There is no amendment that's set in place to defend people's rights against the government deciding, hey, you can't say this thing anymore, like we have over here in the U.S., which is a common misconception. The misconception is that the First Amendment is there to give rights to the amendments are there to give rights to the citizen. Actually, in most cases, most amendments were put in place to restrict the power that the government has. But I digress. Saying that there's which in my opinion seems pretty stupid. But hey, I'm not in Britain, so my opinion on this is negligible. But I digress. Moving on. The UK in general the knife-related incidents was on the decline until relatively recently, spiking in 2017. And there's more to this. the meat and potatoes. You scratch the surface with the statistics on how many people have actually died. But we also have to look at the internal parts of it as well when it comes down to certain laws and regulations. There's been a massive rise, mostly in knife-related incidents involving rape and sexual assault, going from 483 to 640, a rise of 33%. So the rise in violence is not only attributed to simply homicides and assaults, it's also going into sexual assault and rape, which is as an increase of 33% is significant and something needs to be done, in other words. But it's a good thing people are the police are arresting people for defending themselves, because that sets a good example for your citizens as they deal with the increase of crime, as you can see here. But this isn't a stream where I read the article in its entirety, so all the articles I quoted are linked in the description. Now, with all of this said, a lot of people, especially those of us in the United States, we have become accustomed to people not being able to recognize the fact that creating more regulation doesn't stop people that are going to commit crimes, because a person has the intent to commit a crime. Let's say a person has the intent to rob a store. They're going to rob the store whether they get their hands on a knife or a pistol. They're going to do it. They've already come to the conclusion that they're going to commit this act of violence, so they're going to do it. The only thing that putting in laws and regulations does is it regulates people that actually follow the law. So those law-abiding citizens that actually don't want to hurt people will, if, let's say for the sake of argument, more strict knife laws were put in place in the UK, it's only going to be the people that actually follow the law that are going to get hurt by it, because you create more victims for the people that actually don't care about the law and carry knives anyway, because quite frankly, while a knife isn't exactly the deadliest thing in the world, I would rather bring a knife to a knife fight than my bare hands. But what do I know? I'm one of those barbarian Yankees that believes that everybody should have the right to own a firearm as long as they don't have any signs of mental health issues and they're not a fucking criminal. I'm one of those weirdos. But to those of you in the UK, take care of yourself, please. Anyway, regardless, that just about does it for this video. As I mentioned before, all of the related articles are going to be in the description. Feel free to check them out. If you have anything you want me to look into in regards to other countries in Europe, leave me a comment, and I will get around to looking into it. But anyway, in regards to this, I am done, and I will see you glorious cunts in the next one.